All right, so let's wrap up today's show with a little bit of draft or pass. And these are 5 names that have been great at fantasy. One of them maybe good, we'll say. But they're interesting this year. A little bit of risk, but they're just sort of, do you really want them on your team? There's some uncertainty. And so we will begin with Saquon Barkley. Goes to Philadelphia. Draft or pass?
I'm passing on Saquon where he's being drafted right now. It's too rich for me. Jalen Hurts is going to continue to score rushing touchdowns. And here's the thing. If you look at some of Saquon's, I mean, I think we all remember those years where he was just absolutely elite, stud level, catching a bunch of balls as well as running a bunch. I just don't think that he's that guy anymore. I think he's still a good running back, but for where he's going, which is, somewhere between like the 6th, and I've heard him going as like high as like the 3rd or 4th guy, at RB. I'm not going to have him anywhere. I don't believe in Saquon this year.
I'm going to stand by what I said early in the summer. I think he's going to have a really good year in Philadelphia and help that offense. But from a fantasy standpoint, I just don't think he's going to be relied on as much. Like I said earlier, you got Devontae Smith, you got A.J. Brown, you got a lot of guys. They don't need him. Like New York, he was all they had. Giants had nobody else except feed Saquon, and he got more injured there because of that. I think he can remain healthy in Philly because they don't rely on him as much. You get a little breather from Kenneth Gainwell, our boy Will Shipley lives down the street, grew up down the street. So they'll be all right. So yeah, I'm going to pass on Saquon as well. Joe Mixon, I'll make it very clear. I will pass on him. I've been passing on him for like 3, 4, 5 years. So I'm not going to stop now. I like Houston. I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year from a fantasy standpoint, as far as the value, because you got tremendous value last year because they were a surprise. This year, you're paying a premium for him, so you're not going to be as satisfied with these guys. And then Mixon, I don't think he's going to be elite, and you kind of got to draft them fairly early.
Yep, keep going. Totally agree on that one. Yep.
All right, Stefon Diggs will stay in Houston. Another guy, I don't like whiners, and I prefer Nico Collins in Houston, and Tank Dell is more exciting. I think Diggs will be the 3rd guy, and so I'm passing on Diggs. What about you?
He fell off in a major way last year. And I've previously stated my deep love for the diva wide receivers. Okay. But when things go badly for the diva wide receivers is when the performance doesn't match the divaness anymore, And so, yeah, he fell off hard in the second half of last season. And I agree. I think he's the 3rd best receiver on that team and maybe the 4th receiving option if you think that Schultz is going to be heavily involved as well. So I'm out on Diggs for where he's being drafted too.
And I would even make the case that he'll help Houston. Like,
right. Again, they're going to be a good real life team, and he'll be a good receiver. Yeah.
He's a nice weapon for them. And that was a fine trade unless he gets on Stroud's nerves or takes away from Stroud.
We already saw a little clip of him yelling at Stroud in one of the preseason games. So
right. It doesn't take long. All right. Cortland Sutton. I've been going back and forth on Cortland. I'll listen to an expert talk about him. I go, all right, maybe. And then I go, it's Denver. So I think I'll probably have him on maybe one team, but for the most part, I'm passing on Cortland Sutton. Where if he falls, it's the right spot. Yeah, maybe. But for the most part, I'm not real excited about him. I think there will be multiple guys in Denver. I think they'll be better, but not to the level that I really get excited to where, all right, I got to draft this Broncos guy. Maybe Javonte Williams, but it's got to be at the right spot again. So overall, it's probably a pass on Cortland Sutton.
Yeah. I mean, you remember how good Kenny Pickett was in last year's preseason? You remember the Steelers were lining it up. Pickett threw in one of the preseason games for like 280 yards, and everybody was just coming out of the woodwork. Get these Steelers receivers. Pickett is the dude. It's too early to say that Bo Nix can sustain more than one sort of like middling wide receiver. He might prove us wrong, but Sutton, people have just been telling us that Sutton is undervalued for years and years, and it just never pans out for different reasons, So where he's being drafted, I might take a flyer on him later in a draft. I do think he's a good real life receiver. But who knows what it's going to be like in Denver. I'm probably passing on Cortland Sutton as well.
All right. I'm afraid we're going to pass on all these guys now. All right. I got to throw
I can tell you that we are not going to pass on all of these guys. So
okay. Yeah. All right. So the quarterback I'll throw out there, Justin Herbert, I passed on him. I hear the word plantar fascia, and my mom had plantar fasciitis, and as a mom, that was tough. Like, that was tough on her feet. Talk about playing quarterback with bad feet.
Yeah.
Very concerning in LA. Not to mention, they are going to run the ball and run the ball a lot. So that's why I continue to tell you, Kamani Vidal, go get him. Sure, you can have Gus. He'll give you a couple games. J.K. Dobbins, before he gets injured, you can enjoy him, but you want Kamani. But Justin Herbert, I got to pass on. And I'm a Herbert guy. I had him in like 3 or 4 leagues last year. But that plantar fascia, I got to hear that 100% healed before I'm willing. I mean, I guess as your quarterback too, maybe. But even then, it's like, I just can't risk that.
I don't want that. I don't want the headache.
No.
It's a foot injury. You know what you do with your feet a lot? You stand on them. Quarterbacks, they got guys falling down around their feet all the time. All it takes is one weird little tackle or one foot that gets stomped on. That injury just lingers and lingers, and it will be with him all season long. So Justin Herbert, hard pass there. That's easy for me.
All right. So it looks like I've added all players that I'm going to pass on. So I will throw out these 2. So you must be in on 2 of these guys. So I decided to pass on Jalen Waddle in my draft, and I had hoped that Brandon Ayuk would fall a little bit. He actually went earlier than I thought he should have in my draft. When you got the question marks, you got to fall a little bit in drafts. Come on, you can't reach for those guys. But in general, I'm always going to pass on Jalen Waddle. Again, I don't really like second wide receivers in offenses, and then the injuries that he's had in previous years. So too many concerns there. And then Ayuk, I love Ayuk. I was all in on Ayuk last year. I just don't like the uncertainty, so I'm probably going to pass on him as well. Are you taking either one of these guys?
Ayuk does keep trickling down the sort of ADP boards. And so if he goes much further, I think last week when we talked, he was somewhere around like 11, and now on Fantasy Pros, he's like 15, 16, so if it keeps moving that direction, and I don't think he's leaving the 49ers. I think he's going to stay on the 49ers. So there could come a time when I'm drafting him. I am all in on Jalen Waddle, not passing on Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle is really, really good. Last year, Puka Nacua broke the single season record for receptions by a rookie. Do you know who held that record before Puka Nacua did? It was Jalen Waddle.
There you go.
Jalen Waddle, I just think he is, he has these fluky little injuries. The injury concern is real. That's not being overstated. I think because of how well things went for Tyreek last year, we forget that Tyreek was also labeled as one of those like often injured these tiny little nagging injuries, in his career. He always would miss 1 or 2 games with a hamstring thing or something. If Tyreek misses time, Jalen Waddle is immediately, I think, a high-end wide receiver 1. And if he's not, I think the Dolphins are just really fast-paced, slinging it around. So with the sort of aforementioned injury concern, I still think I'm going to draft Waddle a lot this season. I love and believe in Jalen Waddle. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, there you go. You can have him. He's all yours. Yeah. Here are a few names I'll throw out there as far as guys that I just wasn't able to draft for one reason or another that I want to draft. So I've got 4 more drafts that I hope to get on my team. Cooper Kupp. I still want Cooper Kupp. You went a little earlier than I would have liked. I want Pat Freiermuth still. I know we talked about the question marks at quarterback, but as a tight end too, I still because he's the second receiver in the Pittsburgh offense. So if they can get it together, if Wilson or Fields can get it together, I was bummed. I think that was the most bummed I got during my draft on Saturday was, I wanted Pat Freiermuth. I definitely want Dalton Kincaid. Still all in on him. I mentioned Jacoby Myers. I still think I want Nick Chubb in at least one league because let's just say he gets back, maybe toward the end of the season, he gets back to who he used to be. I at least want him on a team.
You got a soft spot in your heart for old running backs, don't you? Yeah, old reliable running backs.
Well, in some ways, yes, but I don't want Zeke.
I do love Nick Chubb. Yeah, I love Nick Chubb.
And one more guy, Romeo Doubs. I was a little hesitant to pull the trigger on him, and then I missed out on him. I like Romeo Doubs and the solid, consistent, steady wide receiver from the Packers. So there's a few guys there. Let me just make this clear because earlier in the offseason, I was all in on Rashid Shaheed. Run for the hills. Injury after injury. No, thank you. I'm out. So sorry, Rashid Shaheed. I wanted to be there for you.
Can I ask you a question?
I can't.
Who's the second receiver on the Saints? Who's the second pass catcher on the Saints?
That's their problem. That's
Right.
that's good news for Panthers fans.
Yeah, maybe they're just gonna be bad. I don't know, but
that's fair. And the other guy has had an up and down. I was reading about him. I can't think of his name right now. A.T. Perry.
yeah.
Does that sound right?
It's either really good news for Olave or there's some little diamond in the rough to take with the last pick of your draft or get off waivers who's going to catch passes for them. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. And maybe it's Kamara. Yeah, just more passes for Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. I that was another team I did not draft. No Saints.
Yeah.
I like Olave. I'm good with Olave. But yeah, I think that Dennis Allen isn't going to keep his job there. I don't think. So it's going to be, I have a feeling that could be a tough year for the Saints. Yeah.